We shift our focus to this now. The ANC's high-level delegation from the National Executive Committee, led by Secretary General Fikile Mbalula, is in KwaZulu-Natal for a decisive program aimed at consolidating and strengthening the movement across the province. And to look at the possible outcomes of this meeting, we are now joined by Professor Bheki Mngomezulu. He is the director for the Center of Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy at the Nelson Mandela University. Joins us now via our video link. Professor, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. Let's start off here. The ANC is in KwaZulu-Natal. What do you make of that visit, particularly now as we prepare for the local government elections?
Good evening, Sisimbali, and good evening to your viewers. This visit is indeed an important one for the ANC, but I think that this time around they are going to do things differently. More especially given the fact that we heard from the SG of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, not so long ago, where he ridiculed the leadership of KwaZulu-Natal, the interim leadership in KwaZulu-Natal, saying that when they appointed the team, they thought they were putting on the ground a Ferrari, but then unfortunately they ended up with a Tez. That's not a statement that to make in a volatile political situation like KwaZulu-Natal, where the ANC has moved from 54% down to 18%. You don't play games in a situation like that. You make sure that the leadership is united, and then you make sure that you strengthen your structures so that at least people can regain the trust, if ever that will happen. So I'm hoping that this time around then, with the rest of the leaders of the ANC, they are going to tread carefully and then think before they make public statements, because that will be political suicide if they were to do that.
Will the ANC be hoping for a miracle as it tries to regain lost ground? It finds itself in a much more different political climate. It's former President Jacob Zuma leading a party which basically annihilated the ANC at the last election.
Sisimbali, the truth is that those who have done pure and natural sciences will tell you that in science, there is no space that is left open. Those of us who are social scientists will say the space is open, and then the other ones, our colleagues on the other side, will say, by the way, where you say the place is empty, actually there is air occupying that space. What I mean by that is that the ANC made a mistake of detaching itself from the electorate. And then when the space was open, other political parties occupied the space, one of them being the MK party just referred to. But there are also other parties like the IFP, which has been growing significantly until the MK came into the party and derailed all the plans of the IFP. I was one of the people, in fact, who was saying that before the MKP came into the party, the IFP stood a better chance of taking control of the province in 2024. Then, of course, when the MKP came into the picture, then all those plans were scuttled. And then I think that all political parties, the ANC, the DA, the EFF, and then, of course, the IFP are licking the wounds from that election. So I'm hoping that politicians would have learned lessons from that situation, and then obviously in preparation for this local government election, the language will have to be straight, and then there should be honesty, and then we must also trust and also respect the electorate.
And what does the ANC need to do differently? I mean, you speak of respecting the electorate. What does it need to do differently this time around to ensure that it can regain lost ground?
The first thing that needs to happen is that unity must start with the leadership. If I were in Mbalula's shoes, for example, the first thing I would have done would be to make a public apology to the provincial task team in KwaZulu-Natal for having ridiculed the leadership publicly when the party had its this particular meeting that they had at the General Council of the ANC. So that's the first thing that you do. Once you do that, then you unite the leadership in the province, then they all sing from the one hymn book. Having done that, you then go to the public and then say, we are sorry for having distanced ourselves from you. We know that you are disgruntled, but then here are the plans we have going forward. They are not going to gain everything, by the way. some of the voters are lost and they are lost for good. But the ANC, like any political party, you don't want to fall and then die and then disappear in thin air. You want to fall, but then you want to crawl and then you stand up again. If that will happen, it will only depend on how the party behaves itself henceforth, starting, as I said, with the leadership and then going to those particular members. And then the general public, there are people who have been voting for the ANC who are not necessarily ANC members. Then go to them and then publicly apologize and then say, this is what we have in place going forward. Hopefully then some people might still give the ANC a chance.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for your time. That's Professor Bheki Mngomezulu. He is from the Nelson Mandela University, also for the Center of the Advancement of Non-Racialism, speaking to us there about that visit by the ANC's NEC to KZN, and that's ahead of the local government elections.